Hello, and welcome to Radio Free Nintendo. It is March 8th, 2018, and I am your host, James Octo Expansion Jones. It's really unfortunate. I'm joined today by Mr. Greg Leahy.
Ahoy, ahoy, everyone.
And Mr. Guillaume Vayette.
I also now have my own amiibo.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you also have your own Octo expansion, which the world can only take one. We are not joined today by Mr. Jon Lindemann. He is otherwise unavailable, but instead, we are joined today by, well, actually, you know what? We're joined today by the new director of Nintendo, well, not new anymore, the director of Nintendo World Report, Mr. John Rairdin.
Now remember, you gotta keep this show family-friendly in case any future site directors are listening right now.
Welcome to the most embarrassing 2 hours of content your site produces every week. It's not even close, to be honest. We are leaps and bounds ahead of all others in providing embarrassment.
It's an accomplishment.
We specialize in it. John's not here, so the most embarrassing element of the most embarrassing podcast is no longer is not present. But
that is like, I don't know. This is meaner than usual, James.
Is it? Is it meaner than
kind
usual?
Of. Yeah.
I don't know. But today, I didn't say the episode number. I'm not gonna. You can't make me. Today, Nintendo did a Nintendo Direct. You know, this is their usual. It's Thursday, so let's drop a Nintendo Direct. Except this one's kind of big, and there was a lot of stuff. And we're going to start the show off by talking about it. We're probably not going to talk about everything because, as I said, it was a big one, and they covered a lot of stuff in 30 minutes. And, you know, we don't really need to talk about all of it. But what I'm going to do first, before we even throw it to that, I'm going to text Mr. Jon Lindemann. To not embarrassing Mr. Jon Lindemann. Is that better, Guillaume? I'm going to text him to let him know that I will read whatever he has to say about this Nintendo Direct on this show right now, and we will see how mature he can be. So, as I do that, let's go ahead and get started talking about the Nintendo Direct. And we're just going to go around and we'll pick off stories we want to talk about. As the host, John, I'm going to let you pick probably Smash Brothers to be the first story we talk about.
You know what? Well, should I pick Smash Brothers
I don't know.
That the audience is... No, you know what? Screw it.
Make him wait.
I want to talk about Captain Toad Treasure Tracker finally being on the system it probably should have been on when it started, which is the 3DS and also the Switch, because that's actually relevant.
Okay.
I'm actually surprised. I'm surprised we're not seeing more of this kind of stuff with the 3DS slowly dying, of games going on 3DS but also being on Switch. Like, this is one of the few first-party games I think we've seen do that.
Yeah, I guess with Sushido made that switch as well.
Yeah.
And of course you had with Mario Maker, you had the opposite. It was Wii U 3DS.
Right. Yeah, Captain Toad was just always a game that felt, it was so compact. I mean, it was spawned off of 3D World, which is spawned off of 3D Land, so it still had some handheld heritage, and always felt like it would do better as a handheld game than a console game, so I'm glad that it's finally on 3DS, even though I'll never buy the 3DS version, but I will buy it probably on Switch.
Yeah. No, it's interesting, isn't it? Because this new Odyssey-related content or whatever, I guess we'll have to see how substantial that is before I'm making any decisions. But yeah, I feel like, especially because the whole, like, you know, little sort of diorama box thing always seemed, you know, like it was a kind of came out of Super Mario 3D Land that had little puzzle sections, which then kind of got embellished into the Captain Toad parts in 3D World. So it is the kind of natural home, but will it get the Odyssey stuff as well? Like, you'd assume they'd be the same in terms of levels, but
it doesn't have the two-player mode. Like they called that out as this is a Switch
I mean
thing.
that looks like a kind of traditional like co-star helper kind of mode.
Yeah, it's the Mario Galaxy multiplayer.
Yeah, which I mean, it would have been interesting. Obviously, it's far more substantial if you'd introduced completely new, obviously you have got some new levels in there with the Odyssey stuff, but actually dedicated 2-player levels that were designed around that, and somebody using toadetles, and the puzzles were actually dependent on that. Would have been more interesting, obviously, but I suppose it's still something that'll be of value to some people.
I will admit that when I saw that 3DS logo, so I was doing. John and I were both dealing with the site during this whole thing, and I was doing site profiles, which meant all I had was audio most of the time because I had the web page back end putting together like articles and putting together games, and I'm making Captain Toad, and I hear them also coming to 3DS, and I go, what? And I like tab over real quick to catch that they had that little video from the 3DS version. I'm like, yeah, of course, yeah, 3DS God, like they actually spent a lot of time on the 3DS. I mean, not a lot of time, but a lot of games, and so I was kind of surprised to see another one.
Like you said, they kind of went through those pretty fast with the whole, this headline kind of format that they do now, where they zip through things, and the 3DS was all that. But obviously you got the Detective Pikachu's coming out quite soon, so kind of made sense to cover that. And then, I mean, in some ways, it was more than I was expecting for 3DS. Especially when you're talking about something that was being talked about for 2019. In the case of the next Mario and Luigi remake, apparently that is a series unto itself now. I
like that they just skipped Partners in Time and said no, we're not.
That was funny.
We're not doing that.
But, in some ways, like I said, in that sense, it was a little bit surprising. But what you do see, and this is kind of very much more in the ballpark of what I've been expecting, I imagine most people, is very little in terms of, outright original content. We've got remakes, we've got ports. We've got games that span in Switch and 3DS. It's very little in terms of things that are entirely new that would be kind of getting developed by some of Nintendo's sort of most prized development assets or anything like that. It feels like sales are probably better than they thought they were going to be. And so it's like, okay, let's put out some software for this thing. We talked in the prediction segment this year about the fact that Luigi's Mansion has been one of their catalogue titles, and it would make sense for them to follow that up. Yeah. And the way they're doing it is porting the GameCube game to it, which seems like the kind of lowest effort way of doing that for the time being. Of course, it doesn't preclude something else happening with the property in the future, but that's the sort of project that's on 3DS these days. There's just a little bit more of it than I would have thought.
I want to take a real quick beat on predictions, because this is the year where predictions I made between 3 and 5 years ago all come true. It's amazing. So I predicted the Splatoon characters in Smash as promotion. Hey, we finally made it. And I predicted playable Octolings with a DLC story component. We finally made it, but for the wrong games, on the wrong system, in the wrong year. Yay!
So you could say that these predictions were wrong.
No, I would say they are future predictions.
It's more just that they're less wrong than usual, I think.
Isn't that what a prediction already is?
It's just weird to see them like, oh, hey, here all those things that you stopped predicting, and if you just kept predicting them, you would have eventually gotten there.
To be fair, it's surprising that it's taken this long to get to paid Splatoon DLC of some form or fashion.
It is.
Given how well it's done. Even, relative to the Wii U platform and now on Switch and all that. And, it is a little bit, how successful it's been at keeping players engaged. It seems like, there will be people who'd be willing to spend money, and exactly, what it would be and how they'd be spending their money, we didn't know, but you always kind of felt like it had to come eventually. And this is it. And it looks substantial, it looks like something that, I might be interested in. I mean, the single player, I like single player Splatoon, and Splatoon 2 is pretty good, but it didn't push it too much further than it did in the first game. Some more weapon variety and replay incentives and things, but this maybe could push it, because I feel like there's still a lot of potential there. Obviously, it's not been the focus of the game.
What rank are you, Greg? Out of curiosity,
30-something.
Okay, So
level. I mean, rank is for the different modes, isn't it? Like tower control and all. That's where you get the letter grades.
Oh, okay.
I don't think I'm going to be pushing rank X on.
You're not going to go for extreme.
No.
Oh.
Which just makes me think of the Brand X commercial the Joker makes in the 1989 Batman.
Oh my God!
I just want to come back to the point that Greg, you mentioned that the 3DS is getting a lot of remakes or ports and stuff like that. It's still getting like 2 more original games than the Switch was announced on this thing. Pretty much everything that the Switch is getting in this Nintendo Direct is a port of some kind of a game that has been available or that has been announced already, like Travis Strikes Again. But at least the 3DS, like for some... Okay, explain to me, has the Dylan series been secretly popular? Is that something that I think
it's
missed?
been secretly affordable to make.
Okay. That would explain it.
I think it's one of those, like, this is successful enough for its cost to produce.
Right.
If you were going to try to make that a Switch game, which is probably why it isn't, that probably would make it more, like, you'd cross that cost-benefit analysis threshold where you're like, you know what? This game's kind of expensive to make.
I'm kind of wondering if I'm supposed now to go back and play those games.
You have to play all 3 Dylan games to get the full story, yes.
No, but I mean, is there something I missed? I definitely missed what the appeal was the first time I tried to play it. Is there appeal there that I can, find?
This does look like the dark, edgy reboot of Dylan, though. So, and you get to create your own Mii furry. So, like,
the dark, edgy reboot with Mii furry. So that's a little,
So it's Sonic Forces. Shit! This is just
perfect.
Nintendo Sonic Forces. Good.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Mr. Rossetti does make a cameo appearance. And that is the darkest reality you could. If you just walked into a bar and Rossetti's there, that's about as scary as it gets.
No, I mean, it was a general trend of, there was a lot of stuff. Much of it was things coming to, particular platforms, but they've been accessible elsewhere.
Right.
Whether it is Nintendo bringing things of their own back from Wii U or whatever, or of course, things Dark Souls, Crash Bandicoot, Okami,
I'm just pointing it out, but like the E3 is in 3 months. Like,
right.
Clearly, that's what they save their new game announcements for. So I'm not actually, I'm not disappointed or anything.
Like, we didn't see
even
Metroid.
Just talking about games that, were already slated for the second half of the year, like Yoshi and Fire Emblem, and there's even though, like I said, with the Mario and Luigi thing, there were some elements of this that went beyond the first half of the year time frame. There are games that I imagine they're going to talk about much more at E3.
Yeah, I think we
just chose not to at this point.
They really were talking about games that were like April to July. In fact, I think we had 2 games,
except for Tropical Freeze, which kind of
right,
which is in May. They didn't really talk about that.
But that was the big game of its Direct, so that's kind of, I guess they kind of said, like, okay, you can. They announced a game on July 10th and 2 on July 13th. Like, what is happening over there? Do they not have a calendar with these things penciled in on it? Like,
this is the same company that released Super Mario 3D World, Link Between Worlds, and Mario Party Island Tour on the same day in a year where no other games came out ever.
Well, to be fair, 2 of those are video games. So we've diverged a little bit, but let's finish up with 3DS real quick, and then we'll go to our next choice topic. So I'm actually really excited about getting to about 3DS. I'm really excited about getting to play Luigi's Mansion again, because we talked about this when Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon came out, which, by the way, was like 6 years ago.
Oh yeah, no.
Wow.
We had a PAX panel. That's how long ago it was. I really wished it was the other game with all the portrait ghosts and stuff. I'll be curious to see. I would assume Next Level's making that, since they made Dark Moon. I'll be curious to see if, like, how that plays, how that performs, how the 3D works on that one. Because it could
again,
be really...
kind of going back to John's point about Captain Toad. You know, there was all that chat about Nintendo trialing like 3D things when GameCube was being developed, and Luigi's Mansion. There's something kind of fitting about that getting a stereoscopic remake. Even though I'm sure there's plenty of people that probably think, "Oh, I'd rather have it on my Switch or whatever." I can't. Also, having the map on the lower screen seems kind of convenient, but I mean. We did a retroactive on the original Luigi's Mansion 9 years ago, so that retroactive is virtually retro in itself.
It is actually, that retroactive is now eligible as a retroactive.
But the biggest thing, that was the last time I played through Luigi's Mansion, so it was quite a while ago now. But the thing that sticks out, and obviously it stuck out pretty well when it came out originally, is just how kind of it was a bit light on substance. There was a bit of kind of obvious padding, even though the game was still really quite brief, so it was kind of thin. So it could really use with having some kind of extra components kind of worked into it or something, but I kind of doubt that's the case.
No, I mean, this is the game that after that retroactive, I came on this show as New Business one time and talked about playing it all without getting out of a chair front to back. And succeeded the entire game. Like, not even bathroom breaks, all the way through. And it was like 2.5 hours. So this game is, as to your point, is incredibly slight. So, which probably helps remaking it. It probably doesn't take very long. But I'm still excited to see it. And get my hands on it again. Of course, WarioWare Gold. We haven't had a WarioWare game in forever.
This one, so it kind of seems like the Rhythm Heaven Megamix kind of concept applied to WarioWare.
It's so much the Rhythm Heaven Megamix. I briefly had a brain fart. Again, I wasn't looking at the screen. I was making profiles, thinking like, didn't they just do a WarioWare remix on 3DS? And then I went, it was Rhythm Heaven. Oh God.
And remember, Rhythm Tengoku Gold was the name of the DS game.
Which is also
Japan.
the poison in my brain.
Yes.
Now, I'm all confused. So the 3DS does not have a gyro in it, correct?
No, it has motion controls.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
It does?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Think about Ocarina of Time remake. Like they had gyro aiming in that.
I haven't played that.
Think about Face Raiders, Guillaume. God.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Oh, okay. Well, okay.
See, I had to put it in terms Guillaume would understand.
I was hoping. Well, yeah. Well, it's been a while. It's been 6 years, as you pointed out, at least. So yeah, like okay. So I guess like this is probably going to be only a download in North America again. Just like Rhythm Heaven Megamix.
Did they say? Because a lot of the games they said on there if it was a download-only game or not. I didn't catch them saying that.
I guess WarioWare does have, you might think would have more cachet than Rhythm Heaven, but at the same time, it's been left kind of dormant for such a time. It's kind of debatable what mind share it's got at this point.
Right.
So David writes, "Hey RFN crew, WarioWare Gold, aka the Mega Mix for WarioWare, is real. What does that mean for the franchise's future and its sister franchise, Rhythm Heaven?" He subjected this WarioWare Lives, going back to our email a couple weeks ago, where we had to pick one to die. We had to Edith Hamilton's The Lottery one of these two games. I mean, I guess it means. I mean, it's a remix. It's a weird like. This is something we can slide out at the end of this thing's life cycle because it keeps selling. And not spend a ton of money on it and make our money back. And just, we have a release. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
I guess the one thing that's disappointing is that since it's on 3DS, it will not have Smooth Moves games in it. So I guess that's one reason to have wished for a Switch version instead. They could have, gotten the whole series in there.
But it will have WarioWare Twisted Moves in it. Which you wouldn't be able to have on Switch easily.
And that is, well, in portable mode, you would have been able to. In
portable mode, sure. But you just think, okay, these are ones you could only play in portable mode.
I guess the silver lining is that it leaves a path open for a collection of WarioWare micro games on the Switch still. And we can,
Well, and having a camera means it can have WarioWare Snap mini games, which means we can all be happy. Until we play the WarioWare Snap-inspired minigames, then we can all be very sad.
Oh.
What an abomination that game is. What an abominable experience that game is.
I don't know. Are you telling me I should download it?
Yes.
Is this something I need to
You
experience?
should absolutely experience WarioWare Snap for Nintendo DSiWare.
Okay, I will.
I'll go always in that.
So yeah, I mean, anything else we want to talk about on 3DS?
I think we've said quite enough.
Moving on. All right, Guillaume, what did you want to talk about?
Actually, I just want to come back to a point I made in some previous episode about Mario Party and how, of course, at some point they were going to have to dig into the roster deeply enough to dig out Spike, because he's one of the few enemies remaining with limbs. And only with limbs does it make sense to, do all these activities.
Nintendo
and yet Nintendo
showed you.
Yeah, they sure showed me, because with Super Mario Tennis Aces, now they've shown us that apparently Chain Chomps can play tennis. So this has thrown my whole perception of the Mario universe upside down, and it's freaky, but I like it. It's weird. It's
Nintendo would rather put a metal ball with the face and the personality of a dog on a tennis court than Spike, which is the correct decision.
Well, probably. Yeah, Chain Chomps are much more iconic.
Well, so Chain Chomp or Bullet Bill, what would you rather play tennis as? Because let's put it this way, Mario Tennis Aces is basically Mario Prince of Tennis, which is a reference 8 people listening to the show are going to get super excited, then feel bad about it. But it's super moves and slow down time. This game is way more mental than I thought it was going to be.
They got so deep into the mechanics and the power shots and the what
then
was it,
use
time
trick
zone
shots
and
Yeah.
It got shut up, and power zone time. It's well, okay, yes, let's do it. I'm excited.
It did seem like it was another off branch from Power Tennis on GameCube in terms of, okay, in Power Tennis on GameCube, as I recall, because it's been a good while since I played it, your power shots, you could do offensive or defensive.
Right.
And, defensive be to retrieve the ball when it's a mile away from you. And so in this case, though, it was interesting because the relationship between them seemed different in the sense that, in that, it was an either-or situation. In this, it was like, well, if you do a trick shot, which is, that kind of defensive shot to retrieve the ball, that builds your meter up really quickly to do an offensive one if you want. Yeah, that's rather than I can retrieve the ball, but that sort of forfeits the right to do the big smash or whatever. Here, it actually helps you do it, so... It'd be interesting how all that balances out. I mean, I remember the big kind of complaint about Mario Tennis on GameCube versus the N64 one, I think, was just that, it kind of could descend into this sort of repetitious, people trading the power shots over and over again. They kind of broke up the flow of the action. I mean, I always kind of looked at the power shot stuff as okay, in Mario Tennis from N64 on, it's incredibly difficult to hit the ball out. So it's how is this rally going to end? The power shots really should help the rally end, because otherwise they could go on for an ungodly amount of time. And I think in the 3DS one they kind of did that, those weird chance shots where the sort of spotlight appeared on the floor and stuff, but that was a bit of a different way of sort of adapting the GameCube kind of format. So it'll be interesting to see how all that comes together, but the fact that hopefully you're going to have an online, kind of area to play. I mean, obviously 3DS only had really sort of basic online, but I got quite a bit of use out of that with Mario Tennis. So, if this is more full-featured and everything, tournaments and all this kind of stuff, it could be pretty good, because for all the negativity around Ultra Smash, I mean, fundamentally, Camelot usually make very playable tennis games.
Yeah, so to talk about predictions one more time, they are still including that text at the bottom, paid online, starting late 2000.
Yeah, it says some online services may require a subscription in September. That was the wording in the fine print that they included in those screens.
We're still hanging on. I kind of like, to your point though, I kind of like the idea that the power move is sort of the exclamation point on a rally. You know, you have to take risks to charge it up, and then once you discharge it, it's gone. So
I mean, the whole, like, you know, sort of breaking down your opponent's racket thing was kind of interesting. You know, in terms of, if you just sort of, you can kind of like brute force them, I guess. If you just keep building up power shots, even if they can get to them, it's going to be, you might just sort of shatter them. And it reminds me of Soccer Slam, where you broke the goalie's armor before, and then you could just smack the goal.
I thought you were going to say broke their arm.
So what do you think this is? Blitz the League?
Yes! Mario Blitz Soccer. There is like, it does seem like the game has been tuned to eventually end the rally, because you can use a power shot to sort of conserve and counter a power shot, and you can of course time it correctly, but eventually, it's gonna end. And even in the old Camelot tennis games, like the old GBA one, sometimes rallies just felt like the long build to just nothing, to just forever continuous drain on your sense of self rallies. So,
well, it's like when you look at how most tennis rallies end, and basically they can't end that way in Mario Tennis, because you can't just smack it out of play.
Right.
Then it's kind of an inevitable consequence, and that's hopefully that it balances out okay. But I mean, they do have the vanilla rules in there. They should simple rules, they called them, for people who enjoyed that style of play. Go back to the N64.
Who hate fun, yes. I'm more.
They have like a Mario Tennis, or not Mario Tennis, a Wii Sports Tennis mode in there too.
They do.
That I was trying to figure out if you actually still have control of the character, or if it really is just Wii Sports.
It really looked like Wii Sports. I mean, granted, there is a stick on the controller, but that would only work for one player, because the stick would be in the wrong position for the other player, because of course the Joy-Cons are asynchronous, or not asynchronous. They're not the same. They're not mirrored.
Well, you can just use the face buttons. That'll be fine.
Yeah, that'll be great. We've already seen that. I mean, I guess you could have them hold it the other way, but it's
hold it upside down.
Yeah, but it's towards the middle, so it's still not great.
Yeah.
It looked like they were moving. They were auto tracking to the ball, kind of Wii Sportsy.
Yeah.
And they did explicitly they explicitly called it out as a casual way to play, which would, if you had to move and also swing your arm around to make the right shape for shots, that would feel the opposite of casual. It feels like more convoluted than anything.
Well, it is more complicated than Wii Sports in that it does actually detect different shot types.
Yeah, Wii Sports.
Whereas Wii Sports was just swing, and that was it. This actually, you can do all the different shots.
I think Wii Sports might have done forehand, backhand, but maybe.
I think
Wii Sports.
I think it was just relative to where the ball was.
Oh, okay, and your
like
brain, you would not.
Right,
swing.
you did it to match what the game was doing. I think.
So the true game was us. We were
all
the ones
along.
being played.
Yeah.
They did not mention anything more about the story mode, which
no, because they're scared to.
They just showed little glimpses of Petey Piranha, and some pipes and different kind of environments.
Which is the same thing they showed last
To be
week.
fair, it was like more variety visually than Ultra Smash ever could offer. So there's that.
True.
But yeah, it's not. I guess it is late June. That ARM slot as we kind of expected. So still got a way to go.
And I mean, it will be at E3 and playable. So.
Yeah, because it'll be coming out right around then. So
yeah,
it makes sense.
Waluigi with the rose in his mouth.
Yeah, that's his
beautiful.
thing now, because that was in Mario Golf on 3DS as well.
Yeah, so now he's
when
got the
did he
rose
become
and the
Don
swoop.
Flamenco? I don't get it.
Well,
like,
with the swoop now, he's really getting in there. Like,
yeah.
Oh, all he needs is like, I don't know. I don't know when this happened. We still don't have a Punch Out for him to star in as Don Flamenco. So
maybe that could be the title defense. Is like you fight their Mario equivalents instead of King Hippo strapping a manhole cover to his belly.
That would be really good, actually.
It's
I mean,
Wario
we've already fought
instead.
Donkey Kong, so...
Yeah,
It's
that,
true,
that was
and-
awesome.
and-
That DK fight was amazing. I love that.
And you could, in so doing, decrease the offensiveness by 95% right out of the gate. So actually, it'd be terrible.
And I
hate
mean,
that-
the real
I hate
question
that
is,
mode.
how the hell's a chain chomp going to box? I mean, that's...
Well, better than Spike, obviously. Just throws the chain around at
He's
you.
got
and then-
no reach.
It's got a chain. I'm pretty sure that's illegal. Like that's not even pro wrestling legal. That's all the way out of the bounds of the rules. All right, Greg, what do you want to talk about?
Well, I mean, we gotta get to the Smash sometime.
Do we?
I mean, come on.
Could we just
I
end the
mean,
show
just
and
do
not talk about
Do
it?
the entire podcast without ever mentioning Smash Bros.
It's
Guillaume, I need you
it-
to edit out all Smash Brothers references.
it is the biggest kind of thing in here for me, especially the fact that they did kind of commit to 2018. I think because obviously didn't show much of anything.
But they didn't even commit to what game it is.
Yeah, I mean, it was as vague as it possibly could have been, except to have the 2018. And yeah, Inklings, Splatoon. As soon as it's like, okay, no, we've definitely wrapped up the Splatoon stuff now. Oh, but wait, here's more Inklings. My mind went straight to Smash Brothers, as I imagine many people's did.
Yeah,
and
I
it
mean,
was.
the fact it's a recreation of that initial reveal trailer. It's like, oh, I know what this is.
This is a reference,
Yeah.
So, and what series references Nintendo's history,
Who makes obsessive references like this and would have taken the time to recreate the right path from the reveal trailer from 4 years ago? Oh, Sakurai would do that, wouldn't he?
And
There it is.
I mean, that was the most obvious thing. Whether it was, I mean, obviously we don't know these things, but whether you were going to be talking about some sort of spruced up, ultra version of the 3DS and Wii U games, or something more substantially new, Splatoon characters had to be in it. It was a kind of a big hole. It had become one.
So
And Link's sideburns had to be updated. That
there you
was
go. Well, I mean,
crucial.
after that game sold as many copies as it did, even if it is just a port, even if it's Super Smash Brothers for Switch and not a Smash Brothers for Switch, which is a convoluted phrase, but it conveys my intent regardless. That costume had to be in there because that game has sold gangbusters, and
You need
is-
it. You got to have a stage. You got to have music. You got to have characters. You have assist trophies. You get the whole shebang. You got but even if it's basically just a port of the last game, all of those things need to be in there from Splatoon.
Yeah, well, and also, I was also referencing from Breath of the Wild, like where that game is now. Like they can't throw 3 Links ago back because it's still freaking Twilight Princess Link. No,
that's true.
Like-
I mean,
After Breath of the Wild, like they needed to lean into that.
especially again, thinking about their kind of Japan-centric kind of focus or whatever as well. Because Breath of the Wild's done the best of any Zelda since Ocarina over there.
Yeah.
So you got to
Well-
think that'll factor in.
Well, and to your point, Splatoon is the best selling Switch game in Japan,
And
exactly.
and
it's not close. Is the other thing to point
not
out.
at all. I mean, it's Odyssey globally, right? But in Japan, it's quite clearly Splatoon 2. So those things, kind of you expect to be in there, even if it is like just a kind of relatively modest,
Right.
sprucing up of the previous games. So I
And
don't really take that to it's no real indication of what it is at this point.
I would think that if it was a port of the older ones, that it would either already be out or have just like a set release date. Like if they were just porting the Wii U one, I feel like they would be like, "Yep, it's November." Like,
But if it was a new game, you think they would have said it. If it was a port, you also think they would have
they
said it.
did say it. Link had different hair, totally different game.
Yeah,
It's-
because they
it-
never put
what
new costumes
confirmed.
into Smash. Oh wait, no, they've done that a bunch of times.
Yeah, I mean, you could already swap between like the 8 Koopa kids and stuff. I mean, like why not? That's
That's what they should do. They should put every Link in there and let you swap between them like the Koopa Kids.
It's
I
better
thought
than
you were just going to say they should make every character the Koopa Kids.
Just replace.
Considering the effort they went to get all the Koopa Kids in there. I mean, just to have like Link's different kind of incarnations represented is better than just having palette swaps.
I mean, Hyrule Warriors does it.
They went there a little bit with, like...
bringing a Muso game into this conversation.
Dark Link and sort of Fierce Deity Link and all that kind of stuff.
Also, like after Shulk, you just know that Link is going to be available in his underpants in Smash. Like, that's going to happen.
Everyone will be available in their underpants.
Yeah,
Mario 2, after Odyssey, had his showing.
True.
I would like to reiterate, this is the most embarrassing 2 hours a week on NintendoWorldReport.com. I mean, it would be, they've already done, like, here's another game's Link before as its own character. They could very easily, if this was support, just go, okay, and here's Breath of the Wild Link, because he would be pretty different if you wanted to lean all the way into what Breath of the Wild is. Like, he doesn't necessarily have a one-handed sword and shield. In fact, he rarely has a one-handed sword and shield. He's probably got some weird spear or a stick with like a bone sticking out of it. There's opportunity with him that you could in theory mine, or you could just make him a character, just a palette swap. Who cares? But yeah, like I thought maybe we'd get some clarity when the press release came out. It is infuriatingly written with the intent to provide no clarity on this subject.
It just says Smash Brothers is going to be on Switch. That's the whole thing.
Out of that whole press release, the whole thing, it is the biggest portion on the press release itself. It's huge relative to everything else on the press release. And every region's press release did this. The headline was Super Smash Brothers series headed to Nintendo Switch 2018. And then it's like, hey, we announced it. It's coming to Switch 2018. The trailer featured recognizable faces, Mario, Link, and Inklings from Splatoon series. And then literally everything else gets more space than that. The S plus to X rank got more space in Splatoon 2 than Smash Brothers did. If you go, they relaunched the Smash Brothers website. If you haven't noticed that, and right now all it is watch trailer and 2018. And,
I guess
and a
the
logo.
question is, the fact that they have revealed this before E3, I guess makes it more plausible that it could be earlier in the year, in terms of a little bit in terms of because we're all looking at September and thinking they need something to, help launch the online service, but still, I mean, it seems a little early September for Smash Brothers, but
I mean, it depends. Like,
it's hard to imagine.
If it's a port, then I don't think anything's too early. I mean, they're real good at throwing Wii U games on the Switch at this point.
I can't imagine, like, I could imagine it will have, some significant new elements like stages and characters and stuff, but but you're not talking about tearing down the engine or how the characters are balanced and stuff and starting from scratch.
I mean, if it's a port, yeah, but who knows?
If Sakurai is actually in charge of it still,
so
then I don't think it's out of the range of possibilities of saying that he's totally starting over.
He did tweet about that, something to the extent of, right now we're just not at the stage where we can reveal the game, but we've been working on the game in silence day after day. Please wait until we can release more information, or until release day is the translation that way. It's like Sakurai's infuriating. So I guess they're just gonna blow the lid off that thing at E3 and just say, here it is. We weren't at a point where we could reveal more information than this pre-rendered trailer in March, but in June, here's everything.
This is just to build hype for their E3.
It is.
Because now it's going to be there. Like,
yeah.
100%, it's there.
If it's a port,
everyone's going to watch it.
If it's a port, though, if it's just a straight up port of the Wii U game with some stuff, it can't be their big thing at E3. Like,
it shouldn't be.
Yeah, well, I guess the question as well is, will there be one big thing the way there's been the past few years in terms of where the whole show is themed around that?
But see, I think that's been super successful for them.
Yeah, it's been successful, but that's because they didn't have that much to offer. in the
Right, they
first
were
And
doing
place.
also
out of-
those
out of
games are
necessity.
kind of big enough in scope and also in fan interest and all that kind of thing to bear that burden. Whether you have a game quite like that, even if you've got plenty of stuff, it's debatable. You know, I mean, if you look at how well those games were ultimately received, you know, I mean, I'm sure they felt the confidence to put them as the kind of the big game in the spotlight, and that it wouldn't crumble under the weight. And whether they feel that way about anything this year is yet to be determined.
I'm kind of surprised a lot of this stuff is early in the year, though, because like if they needed to pad the back end, some of this stuff could have waited. We didn't need to get 3 games between July 10th and July 13th. Like they could have slid something back to say October or August.
Well, I suppose it's not out of the question that some things still might flip eventually, but yeah, I know what you mean. And you've got like Hyrule Warriors is coming out very close to DK. Those two kind of Wii U games coming back. Although in Japan, Hyrule Warriors is coming out a week after Kirby, so it's weird that there's quite a big gap there between Japan and the West, which is not something we see very often these days.
No,
in
fact, Tim asked us about that explicitly. Like, why do we think it's so much later in North America? And the answer I have is shrugged shoulders.
In each case, it has to be within a week of a side-scrolling platformer coming out.
Oh, okay.
That's the weird part of it.
It's in their contract.
It's either a week after Kirby or a week before DK. I think that 2 months apart. That's weird, but there you go.
We have to go deeper. The only thing I could think of is Nintendo is handling the localization, and they're having to do some significant work there, more than we would expect, considering it's a port.
Yeah, because considering even the stuff that's, I guess the 3DS, like Legends exclusive stuff, you would have needed to be spruced up again visually, to match the level of, perhaps exceed the level of the Wii U game. But text-wise, all that, is there, would there be anything? I mean, it's odd.
I mean, unless Does Tecmo Koei publish that game in Japan, or does Nintendo publish it? That was John giving me his answer.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, because you do get that quite often, don't you? Where it's like, okay, you publish it. Like, didn't it go the other way with Rabbids? Like, Nintendo published that in Japan. Yeah, and you've seen that with like the Mario and Sonic games over the years, in terms of like Sega in some territories, Nintendo in other territories. So yeah, I think you could be right about that. It could just be the fact that you've got a different publisher and it's up to them.
Yeah, at which point that puts Nintendo responsible for the localization in every region except in Japan, where obviously it's not being localized, it's just being released. And so maybe they just need more time, or they just want more time, or their strategy says, no, it needs to be next to this 2D platformer, not that 2D platformer.
Yes.
No, it doesn't work next to Kirby. It needs to be next to DK. Don't you idiots know anything? And maybe they just want to give Hyrule Warriors more time to breathe, because that game's not been out that long. And Japan
Fire Emblem Warriors, you mean?
Fire Emblem Warriors, sorry. Japan seems to have an insatiable ability to consume Musou games.
That's true. Didn't Fire Emblem Warriors come out a bit earlier there, which would
it did.
You would expect for the localization reason in that case, as
Right.
well as any publishing entanglements.
Yeah, so it could just be a matter of we have a Nintendo exclusive Warriors game that came out X number of months ago. We want to give it more room to breathe. So this is what we're going to do. We're just going to release Hyrule Warriors later. I don't know. So John
Fire Emblem Warriors came out at a stupid time too, didn't it?
Yes.
It came out. There was something else that came out right beside it.
Yeah, there was. I'm blanking on what it was. I just remember thinking, well, I'm never going to play that now when I saw the release date.
So maybe that's just the strategy, is to put it next to whatever will make it do the worst.
Nintendo is embarrassed about these games and is just releasing
They're trying
them
to
against
bury
other
them.
stuff.
Yeah.
Why did we sign this deal? We were drunk. We didn't know any better. There's the I I've talked about it on the show, the fake article I wrote that I'll never release, that's an interview with Nintendo people wanting to figure out why they let them make all the awful characters in Hyrule Warriors. That game came out in October 20th, which, if that date sounds really familiar, it should, because I'm pretty sure that's pretty close to Mario.
That would be, yeah, that would do it.
I think it was like a week after Mario.
Yeah.
But to Greg's earlier point, it came out about a month earlier in Japan. Imagine us having to talk about this during the Wii U era. Like, God, I can't believe they're going to release this many games that close together. What are they thinking? I'm going to give John his opportunity to pick, the John who just texted me. He did not embarrass himself, which I'm proud of him. He says, well, a little bit. He says, all caps, also Smash hype. John, you're 60? I don't know. You don't need to be talking about hype in all caps. But he points out that Octopath looking great. Which, damn it, John, I wanted to bring that game up, but that's fine. We'll go into that one. Octopath Traveler has a name. It's Octopath Traveler, because when you talk about a game for a year with a name like that,
well,
you basically
they dropped the project.
They did drop the project.
Yes, true.
But you can't change the name after a year. Like, you're pretty much stuck with it. So now they're just gonna pretend like it's not a weird name. It doesn't make any sense. So here we are. We have.
This is the company that released Bravely Default.
It is. No.
I mean,
Kingdom Hearts is your baseline for this company.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like they explain in this very direct that Octo means 8. So I don't see what your problem is. 8 paths Traveler.
Guillaume,
makes more
unless
sense
you
than
are
Bravely
contorting
Default.
your body to look like the number 8, your opinion doesn't count here, sir. Yes, this is the Octo expansion Path Traveler.
Exactly.
Here we are. We now have a date for this thing. It's July, which earlier than I expected. July 13th. One of those 2 July 13th games. And it continues to look cool. I don't have much else to say. You have 2 classes. Apparently, you can double a class down on a character, which should make for some fun stuff. And
yeah, it doesn't seem like it's as flexible as Bravely Default with the job system. Yeah, which I did really like that about the Bravely Default games.
Yeah, I mean, this game is in a lot of ways seems simpler than Bravely Default, because it's going for an even more retro. I mean, visually certainly. I think it looks better than it ever has. I think it looks more visually interesting than it did even when we got the demo.
Well, supposedly they did change quite a lot visually based on feedback as well, in terms of some people found it hard to see, exactly where they were going, and also they definitely made quite a lot of changes in the visual department, as well as some of the kind of gameplay things that you'd expect, and a lot of quality of life stuff, I think, was what came out of that. Skipping certain things and fast travel, all this kind of stuff. So it's one of the last things really that was talked about at that January event, more than a year ago, that to come out. So yeah, I know what you mean. It kind of it was a little on the earlier side. Perhaps why I thought it might slot in this year, but at the same time, it has been a long time coming. So. Yeah, it's nice to see it get a date finally.
Yeah, I mean it and Travis Strikes Again are it really, which also showed up today.
Yeah, and that was so damn vague.
Yeah, that was just him getting on stage and going off script.
Yeah, with like just an aspiration. Basically,
I would like to make a game.
I'd like to do a lot of things, mate.
If you've not actually seen the somebody actually went and translated all of his nonsense. He spends a bunch of time in that thing talking about the fact that the Makuhari Messe is where they host a major wrestling event, a pro wrestling event. It's like, this is how you're wasting the time Nintendo gave you.
So I guess that explains also why the interpreter couldn't really keep up. And it was just like, I don't know what's going on here.
He went off script. He later came out and said, "Yeah, I got excited and went off script. I feel bad."
No shit. So it was interesting to actually see some of that for the first year, because again, I mean, it was we had the completely vague, aspirational phase. Then we had the, just the movie sort of.
It's about indie games. You're like, what?
Yeah, and now we have actual little bits of footage and things. So it's getting realer, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we saw gameplay, which is exciting, and we saw that it's got weird gameplay modes. It's got a racing mode. It's got some top-down action-looking thing. It's got some maybe more isometric over-the-shoulder stuff.
It's co-op.
It's got co-op. We got to see some of the names for some of the games he goes into, and they're pretty good. This is a real video game now for real people. Well, not necessarily for real people. This is a real video game for humans that will exist sometime this year, which is exciting. But yeah, it's that and Project Octopath Traveler, now just Octopath Traveler. Were sort of the two things that we saw back then. I guess the last one is SMT, which really was basically aspirational. It's like here's a slide deck essentially of a video game. We now have stuff, and they're coming this year. Both of them, for real. Yay. All right, so it's my turn to pick something to talk about, and we've actually gone through a lot of the big ones. So I get to spend a little bit more time in my head trying to think of what I want to talk about, which is why I'm stalling right now, so I can tell you that we are getting, finally, Okami HD. Capcom acknowledges the Switch exists, and are going to port the game to it. That feels like it probably should have been there a while ago. Stay tuned for Resident Evil 4 sometime in 2019.
Stay tuned for all the Resident Evils.
Yeah, that's the thing. I would have. I know we have the Revelations games, but I would have imagined we'd get RE4 and any number of the other ones before Okami. But
we might even get the GameCube games that everyone except Nintendo has right now.
God, that's true. Like the
maybe they'll show up on 3DS like Luigi's Mansion.
I would love for RE4 to come out on 3DS, because then we could say it's on 4 systems, knowing full well it's going to be on a 5th Nintendo system eventually. I want to get to the point where RE4 is available on more Nintendo systems than like any Mario game. It's got to be
Resident Evil. It's becoming like the new Doom. Like, it's on everything. You have to run it on everything.
It's been released on PC multiple times. Maybe 3.
Well, yeah.
Maybe 3 distinct releases of that game at this point, which is impressive. Because they've not really done anything with it every time they release it. They just kind of release it again and up-res the textures and call it a day. It's impressive. It's an impressive feat of, I'm going to sell you this game again. And here we are, Okami HD. I have actually not played Okami. Years on.
Never? Okay.
So, yeah, like, I saw, hey, Okami HD's a thing. I'm sure that's going to be on Switch. Oh, it's not. Because that, as we've talked about on the show, was the era of Capcom just not announcing Switch games.
Yeah, weren't ready to kind of really go all in, like the wait and see kind of phase.
I bet these ports of NES Mega Man games would not sell on Switch. We're just not going to do that.
You got to wait until the system's proven
for
itself before you can take a risk of that magnitude.
Yes, before you can do that, no effort. You have to make sure it's worth the money you'll definitely not make on it. God damn it, Capcom. But here we are now. We have Okami HD. It looks nice. Portable Okami. Yay. It never made it to Vita, did it?
No.
Okay, so this is the first time Okami HD is portable, or Okami is portable if you don't count Okami Den.
Yeah, which is different, separate game.
Yeah, it's a separate game. There we go. That's what we need.
It would benefit. I think it would benefit a bit from being portable, because there's some bloat in that game, from what I recall of play. I played through it on Wii. That was the first time I played it. There's some things specific to that version that are a little bit iffy, like dodging with the nunchuck or whatever. But just in terms of the pacing, there's there's some repetition and stuff, and kind of turned it into a bit more of a slog on Wii than I think it would be on Switch. So for me anyway, the way I use it.
Good news, Greg. Now you have your choice of controls that may not feel just right for this game. You can use touch, you can use motion, or you can just use the control sticks.
Yeah.
Okami HD on Switch comes to meet you wherever you want it met.
No, that's good. I mean, there was definitely elements of drawing with the pointer and all that I liked with the Wii version.
Yeah.
But we all know anything using the accelerometer for essentially a button press is not a tremendous idea.
No.
Especially something like dodging, where timing is somewhat crucial.
At best, it worked as well as a button press. It was never a superior experience. But more realistically, it worked as a delayed button press of an indeterminate delay, so you couldn't just pace yourself on it. But yeah, like I'm excited to play. I think this is fun. I'm finally just gonna buckle down, and I hear good things. I'm finally just gonna buckle down and play it.
I got bored before I finished it.
Well,
I don't know. It's like. I don't know. I think I played for 40 hours and there was 40 more waiting for me or something ridiculous like that. It's a long game. It's a longer game.
I do remember it being long. I don't know whether I remember it being that long, but
80 hours long. It's not a Tales game.
There's periods of it that feel padded where it's like, why? Like, you could do without quite a lot of this. It'd still be pretty damn huge, but that's just... I'm not saying there isn't still some of this that goes on today, but I feel like that sort of time, the middle of the last decade, was particularly bad for the whole sort of like, it's got to be, how many hours is it? How epic is it?
Right.
Mentality.
Was it a matter?
But I mean, like, it might be more bearable in portable form, which...
Yeah, I think so. For me, anyway, I think it would be.
Was it a matter of being epic, or was it a matter of just trying to make the game long enough you couldn't beat it in a weekend and sell it? Like trying to just beat the secondhand market?
That too. But I think it was sufficiently long that you could have made a number of cuts and still been pretty safe on that score.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So ARMS is a game they have discontinued support of, which is why we had a patch since then, and also we got to spend like 4 minutes talking about it on a Nintendo Direct.
It was
Nintendo apparently has no idea what it.
They're trying to sell new Switch owners the game. I mean, and like I guess like they're just kind of preparing the terrain for their paid online, and they're trying to drum up like an audience, a user base as much as they can with all their online properties, and that includes ARMS.
It's weird. It's like, okay,
funny though they didn't feel the need to prompt us to do with anything to do with Mario Kart.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that doesn't need it. Everyone is still playing that.
So you could infer from that the disparity in sales. But another test punch. But that kind of led on to the interesting thing with Dark Souls about they're having a network test.
So that's pretty normal for the Souls series, though. They usually do one right before launch.
No, I can imagine it would be elsewhere, but I wasn't necessarily sure that whether, given the current circumstances, how that would go on Switch.
I'm excited to try it out and see how it feels. 1,000 years ago, I talked about playing Dark Souls on 360 on this show, and I quit in part because of the 8 frames per second you get in Blighttown. So I'll be excited to see this at 30. I know it's 60 if you get it on PS4 and Xbox One. So there's that, but it's not portable, so there's a trade-off somewhere. And also, you don't get the fine Solaire amiibo, which is why?
It's so weird, isn't it? I mean, I know
Bandai, why?
The Marina and Pearl amiibo are coming in July, but they'd already revealed those. So it's like you have a direct where like one entirely new amiibo is revealed, and it's that.
It's way too detailed. This is the point where amiibos are toys first and things second, because you unlock a pose.
Yeah, but you can do that pose from the very beginning of the game.
Yes, but you can earn that pose anyway. Like that. They're selling a toy. It just happens to integrate with your game. Like, it's not...
But now the first thing you can do when you load up Dark Souls now is praise the sun.
It's true, you could.
Your opening move
It's your opening gambit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's really just like here's a Dark Souls collectible. Now we have Dark Souls merch. You're welcome. By
the way, I can answer my own question from earlier on. The box art for Captain Toad on 3DS has a sticker on it that says "with content from Odyssey" as well.
There you go. Done.
So yeah, they're obviously kind of downsampling those graphics for
So
those
the stuff they showed from Captain Toad, it looked like it was in a slightly different art style, on 3DS. Which I guess
I think it's just simplified. I mean,
yeah.
I wonder if it's running in the 3D Land engine.
Oh god,
that would be weird.
I mean, this whole thing is weird.
It's getting off for 7 years old. I mean, that's dusting it off.
Hey guys, I found it. It was we'd lost it somewhere. So yeah, ARMS online tournament. Is anybody good enough to be one of the top 8?
I mean, how many people are still playing ARMS? Like how? Like 8 out of how many?
The problem is the people who are still playing ARMS are probably really good at it. And they've just been sharpening their skills against other people who are really good at it.
Waiting for the moment.
It got quiet, relatively quiet quite a long time ago. And yeah, usually if I tried to play ranked, it would be someone who was way, way better. And so the idea of being able to climb up ranks basically, kind of ceased to be operative. So yeah, it kind of puts you off coming back.
I know the game has high-level play because it made an appearance at Japan Evo, which is crazy to think about. I would love to see what high-level ARMS play looks like. Like I think that's my takeaway from that whole thing. I would love to see what 2 like really elite ARMS players look like, because that could be absolute nonsense. Because ARMS looks like nonsense when you play it. Like, let's be honest, watching ARMS play looks insane. I can't imagine what, like, 2 really skilled players playing it looks like. Maybe it just looks quiet. Maybe it's just a bunch of, like, footsies and then just occasional trades. Oh, I just depressed myself. All right, well, any other games anybody wants to talk about?
Well, I think we should mention Undertale coming to Switch. That means, like, the engine that Undertale was made with is being worked on to be, being ported in a way to Switch, right?
Game Maker.
Yeah, so it possibly opens the door for even more indies making it to the Switch eventually, because we're not getting enough of those.
Yeah.
No.
There are ones now, like Valhalla, that are open up as a consequence of this. But, yeah, I mean, it's... we could talk about it, but, like, they didn't even seem to be that interested in talking about it because they just said, it's coming eventually. It's like, thanks.
Right. Yeah.
I know they're trying to be cute.
It was funny.
But that's like, stop it. Just fucking stop it. Just like, I had to write a news story about that. You know what that means? You know how to write a news story where they literally give you one fact? I exist. I could have just written the headline and just left the entire article blank.
Or just the article is just, now stop asking. Because that's basically what they that's what that was.
Yeah, I took a shot at them instead to say something along the lines of, no release date was provided during the Nintendo Direct, which Nintendo described as, quote, focused on Nintendo 3DS and Nintendo Switch titles launching this year, beyond saying that it would reach a release eventually. Slightly like, look, I see what you're doing. Fucking stop it. But beyond that, yeah, that's all we got. But Game Maker 2, I believe, is what is coming. They signed a deal. It's officially licensed. You'll be able to export directly. In fact, I think we got a press release about that today.
We did.
Yeah. Yep. We got a lot of press releases today.
Yeah.
We got a Crash Insane Trilogy press release, which means we are now in the darkest timeline.
I don't know. I'm just wondering, why not Spyro instead?
Because that game's not been announced yet.
That's not announced? Yeah.
Because it exists, and because no one's done a good job pretending it doesn't exist.
Just in general, I mean, I just prefer Spyro over Crash.
We've talked in past episodes about the British charts, in terms of the things.
Oh, this game sold ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely obscenely successful here. So yeah, we get ready for this to like overtake Odyssey in Britain or something. God.
So you're telling me if
Shameful.
we had Crash Soccer, it might sell 1 billion copies? in the UK?
Yeah, Crash Rocket League crossover. It's just gonna be but also it's part of GTA 5. That yeah, that'd be the real chart killer.
Crash Cars Soccer GTA.
So yeah, it is successful. I've never played a Crash game. It doesn't particularly entice. But,
Yeah. Well, platforming is always best when you're running into the camera. That's generally speaking what I have found. So you can look forward to Crash Insane Trilogy.
It was a few bits. There was some stuff in 3D Land like that, but less so in 3D World because it wasn't 3D. So
right.
I didn't feel the need to have the whole whoa spiky balls rolling towards you. But, yeah, it's still. I don't know. It kind of worked in that game. I've no idea. Given how much earlier those Crash games were and everything. And,
so what you're saying is they should port the Crash Insane Trilogy to the 3DS.
There we go. Yes,
definitely. Yes. Again.
Can we port it to everything? Port it to N-Gage. Fuck it. Let's do it.
Yep. All in.
It's fans asked, and Activision, a wholly owned subsidiary of Activision Blizzard Inc. and NASDAQ, ATVI. That's already the worst start to a press release about a video game I've ever seen. Have answered with Bandicoot Insane Trilogy to all major gaming platforms. But as you said, it's the number. This is a word salad. I'm not. This press release has 2 headlines. The first one: Wumpa Fruit for everyone. Crash Bandicoot TM Insane Trilogy makes its way to Nintendo Switch, TM, Xbox One, and Steam for the first time! Subheadline: Number 1 selling remastered collection on PS4 TM history. Parenthetical 1 arrives multi-platform on July 10. My soul just left my body. I just watched it fly off into sight. Thank you, Activision Blizzard. Activision, a wholly owned subsidiary of Activision Blizzard. And then they spend like paragraphs talking about how different control schemes will work. God help us. So yeah, that's happening. Welcome. You're all gonna buy Crash Bandicoot now. You didn't even realize it. We were talking about before the show started. We had that email last week or the week before about Nintendo's Bandai Namco relationship. And I've got at least 2 or 3 emails in my press release that start with Bandai Namco in all caps. Because they had multiple hits in this game, including things like, what was that game? Little
Nightmares.
Little Nightmares, which they're involved in, and you can get your Pac-Man amiibo to have some use. And of course, we already talked about their other game. But yeah, that's pretty much the big stuff. I don't think we've got anything else we want to talk about. Kirby Star Allies is going to have more Star Allies available for download.
Yeah, I mean, you did obviously show first of all, they showed the people that were playable characters in the Wii game. And then the new ones that are coming from sort of Kirby history, like the Animal Friends from Dreamland 2, I think, and someone from Dreamland 3 and from Superstar. So, yeah, it's nice that it's going to get support in that way. The 2 weeks after launch, is it? You're going to have the first update with those new friends, and then there'll presumably be more friends later.
It's that whole, they won't sell it if we drip feed them content, but usually you have to drip feed content that's a little more than, here's that little blue, definitely not a slime with a tongue.
Yeah, well, it's it'd probably be enough to put the seed of doubt in someone's mind.
Good Lord. All right, so anything else you want to touch on, or are we going to call it there? At least in terms
good
of
to me.
Okay. All right. So then I guess we'll go through real quick. How does everybody feel about this one? I'll give my kind of thought to give you kind of the base of what we're talking about. I actually was Guillaume's kind of on point that there's a lot of stuff here that are ports, or this is on another system already, or this is a remake. But I was still kind of surprised at the intensity that they hit with, if that makes sense. They kept with the exception of the Mario Tennis part, where they were really intent on us seeing that, no, this game is out there. it seemed very, very, very brisk, even by their current standards of like, here's a game, here's a game, here's a game, here's a game, here's a game. I was surprised, though, that they did big DLC dump news story for Splatoon 2, which we talked about it for a while, but I can't overstate how big of a story that is if you live in Japan. And then immediately, so they told us here's this big Splatoon patch coming, and it's going to have 100 new pieces of costume. And then they end one more thing to us with this weird, like, sci-fi 80s movie trailer slash
it's like
weird
it's like
Michael Jackson music video.
It was like the second stage of Final Fight, wasn't it? On the subway train.
But then it was also like this bad era music video where, like, you've got weird pulsing lighting and you've got characters sort of knowing nods, and it's like, what is... You've got an Octoling doing a really intense hip sway walk through a trailer or through a train where everybody's just kind of staring at them. It's like, what is happening here?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the end of a direct. That's the end one more thing. And then they end one more thing that again with a nondescript Smash Brothers announcement. I don't know how to feel about this direct. It was eventful. It was weird. They had a lot of stuff. I'm excited about it, but like, man, them not telling me if the Smash is new or not is surreal. And it's never a question we had to ask before. There was never a moment where we thought, oh, this could just be a port of a previous Smash. But now that we live in a world where there is a game called Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and another one called Super Smash Bros. For 3DS that came out like a month apart, we have to contemplate these things.
Well, it's more because Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is a thing, I would say.
Yeah.
Like the 3DS and the Wii U game, or like they came out at the same time because the Wii U was not doing well and they wanted a successful Smash game, and so they also put it on the 3DS, and so that's understandable. But the reason why we're not sure if this is a new one or a port is because Mario Kart Deluxe.
Yeah,
entirely.
But Smash still sold decently well on Wii U, so it's in that territory.
Sure, and Mario Kart 8 sold very well.
But Mario Kart 8 was very,
as
very
well
close
as one could possibly imagine, given how small the user base was.
Yeah, but Mario Kart 8...
The attach rate was ridiculous.
Mario Kart 8 for Switch will ultimately end up being over a year earlier than Smash Brothers. And we had talked about it in the past, that like there's a point. There's a point at somewhere where it's like it's been too long for this to be a port.
Yeah,
and I'm wondering if it's just nondescript 2018, if we will have hit that threshold by the time it comes out.
Well, I mean, where I put it was if they didn't announce it, but at E3. But they've announced it before E3, so I think we're still firmly in the area where it could be a deluxe version.
I mean, they could have announced it in 2020, and it still could be a deluxe.
Yeah, we're talking about probabilities here, not absolutes.
I don't know, but it's there's a like I would feel like I'm not gonna be upset if it's a port. Honestly, I won't. I mean, if it's a new game, that's interesting in its own way, but like I just want to know. Like, that's incredibly frustrating.
No, I mean, I just want a Smash Brothers to play on Switch, to be honest. That would mean a lot. And of course, there's still, you could say if it's fundamentally the same game, there's still a big range in terms of, we've already seen the Inklings, and you could bet on that, but how much more additional stuff could there be? It may in some ways kind of scratch the itch of a new game more than you might think if it's fairly kind of sweeping some of the additions, but it may not. So there's a lot of uncertainty at this point.
Yeah. Also, 80 new levels for the Splatoon 2 to download. What? There's no way it's as big as the other levels, right?
No, it must be like little smaller challenges.
Because that would be absurd.
I don't know. Like, how much is it? That's $20.
80. Guillaume, 80 levels of Splatoon would take forever. That might cross the threshold to be too much. All right, Guillaume, what you want to wrap up your thoughts on it? overall?
I'm happy people are happy, I guess. I
Oh, well, that's magnanimous of you.
I don't I didn't really see anything. I think I might, like, depending on reviews, I'm probably gonna get Mario Tennis. Other than that, I'm too busy kind of still with the backlog to really consider, like, to know for sure, oh yeah, I'm gonna play Octopath when that comes out. There's a chance I might have to wait. I don't know. I guess I'm still excited for E3 when we get new game announcements. Like,
yeah. I mean that was very much my expectations. Was that this was kind of the warm up for E3. It's coming just before we've got some major releases. Just the next couple of weeks with Kirby and Detective Pikachu. So obviously it's gonna mention those and then kind of get us warmed up for the the things that are either going to be before E3 or maybe a little bit after, and so not naturally the focus of that show, and give them the spotlight. And broadly that is what happened, but it was a bit more wide ranging than I thought. So in that sense, it kind of went beyond the expectations, especially with the vague as it is, the Smash confirmation and specific the 2018 target being put out there. Was probably more than I would have expected if they were going to talk about it at this stage. So in that sense, it was kind of a pleasant surprise aspect to it. Obviously, there's no denying there's so much of it that's just yep. You can play this on Switch now, like or,
Box checked.
In some cases, you can play this on 3DS now.
Right.
But so it's not the kind of thing you're going to be hopping and skipping about. But like we said, it isn't the main course either.
It was workman's like Nintendo Direct.
E3's always going to be the centerpiece of their kind of hype season. So I would say if anything it was performed slightly above my expectations. And so in terms of things I've got my eye on, Octopath definitely I've had my eye on that for quite some time. And Mario Tennis too, even though it's still a little bit cautious on it. I kind of feel like that there should be enough actual care and just budget and time allocated to this, unlike Ultra Smash, that this should make good use of the solid fundamentals that a Camelot Mario Tennis game brings.
Well, just because it's going to be part of their argument to sell us paid online,
I
kind
mean,
of
right
feel
now
like they have no choice.
That's like the closest thing to that date, isn't it? In terms of like a new game coming out, that's the back end of June. They're talking about September, so I mean, you would hope from their point of view, they're thinking, this is going to be one of the games to help spearhead it, along with the catalog stuff like Splatoon and Mario Kart.
John, do you have any thoughts you want to wrap us up with?
I will say that I like the way they've handled this year so far as doing these directs that are very focused on like the immediate future, as opposed to, I mean, I think that's just, indicative of where they are as opposed to where they have been. And I like this thing of like, they come up with an E3, or they come up with a direct, and they're like, here's stuff that's happening in the next like 2 months. And it's like, whoa. So even if you don't care about those games as much, you still, it feels good to have stuff coming out, which is very different for Nintendo. But I agree, they're holding the majority of their stuff for E3. So I thought this was better than the past, the direct that they did earlier in the year, whenever that was.
The Direct Mini?
Yeah, this greatly surpassed that for me, which surprised me. It had a lot more substance to it than I expected it to.
I guess the other thing that's worth mentioning in terms of things that weren't mentioned is Labo. The fact that that's only about a month or so away, but they're keeping that to the side, and as it was before, where they had the mini direct, and then that came later in a separate announcement. They're keeping it out of subsequent directs also. So very clearly trying to keep that on a kind of parallel messaging path or whatever.
So we'll probably get another Labo presentation.
Well, we're gonna
next
have to,
month.
aren't we? Because before the actual launch.
See, I wonder, because they've been doing Labo stuff away from us pretty much this whole time. Like, they've done more press events. They're doing a live event where you can bring your
the
kids.
hands-on aspect as well, because that's so big a part of it. But I imagine there'll be more, prepared videos as well before the launch comes.
Yeah. I just wonder if maybe they'll just run it out of a completely separate PR channel, and like we might even just miss it.
Yeah, this certainly seems to be the approach so far. It's very much the own thing.
Yeah. Real quick, in Japan, they only had a couple different things that we didn't get. They have a Taiko game coming out that uses the motion of the the Switch controllers, the Joy-Cons, which looks actually kind of fun. So we'll never get it. They showed PSO2 Cloud, which we'll also never get. And then they showed Saga Scarlet Grace, which we'll also never get. So there, I saved you from having to watch those and then feeling sad about it later. You're welcome. All right. Well, that's going to do it for our discussion of the Nintendo Direct. When we come back, we're going to do a little bit of new business. So stay tuned. We're back. Don't say listener mail. We're back for new business. And now that we've already dealt with Nintendo, if you jumped ahead to the second segment to hope to find Nintendo Direct here, you've missed it. Go back to the start. But if you're here to hear what we've been playing,
it's our version of Ghosts and Goblins.
I'm trying to make this a user-friendly podcast.
Not Ghosts and Goblins, then.
Not in the slightest. So, John is the host. What have you been playing?
What did you refer to me as the host?
Well, no, I'm as the guest. This is a disaster. Go.
Okay. Start over.
I think that was the
I
second
refuse
time
to start over.
I think
You're
that
done.
was the
You're fired.
second time you did that.
You can't
tonight
fire
as
me from Radio Free Nintendo.
God,
There's no rules here.
Okay, I've been playing, or I just finished playing. I gave up on Hollow for the Nintendo Switch, which is a game that I was actually excited for, because I saw, I think Justin Nation posted some footage from the PC demo back when it was first announced for Switch, and it is a very visually impressive first-person survival horror game that takes very heavy influence from Dead Space. And I was like, that looks like a cool game. And so then it showed up on Switch, so I took the review copy, and it all went downhill from there. So like I said, survival horror, first person. If you're playing handheld, the game runs at a pretty locked, like 10 frames per second, which is what you want when you're shooting things that are running at you. It's
first person in general is.
Oh yeah, I mean, you want
really sensitive to
the
terrible
more
frame rate.
The more barfy I can be while playing a first person shooter, the better. I'd say.
But what if it was 5? Like,
you know,
so I know you're upset that 10 is low. But what if it was 2? What if it was 1 frame per second?
Someday I hope a game can reach that level of excellence, but it is not this day.
1 frame a second would actually be like artistic.
Yeah, that would be. Well, I saw some trailer for an indie game that had really weird animation that was actually kind of like that, but that's off topic. So the whole thing is you look at screenshots of it on Switch, and it looks remarkably comparable to the PC game. Like, it looks way better than a Switch game can look. And I think the case is that they put it on Switch, they lowered the resolution a little bit, and left all of the effects in, and so it just doesn't work.
So what you're saying is it looks way better than a game can look on Switch because it is.
Right, because it just doesn't. It's like when you try to run a computer game on a low-end computer that it can't run. It kind of breaks the computer. And beyond even just performance issues, I had an instance where it's not like open world, but you can backtrack a lot, and because it's survival horror, you're oftentimes going back to find like ammo and whatnot to refill your weapon. And so I'd backtracked, and I was walking down a hallway, and suddenly there was just like a void at the end of the hallway, and I was like, I don't remember this being here before. And so I looked out onto the void, and I could see the next section of the level was like way down below me. So apparently the game, when you backtrack, it just kind of breaks it now and then, and it loads in segments of the level at the wrong Y coordinates. So I was actually able to jump down and wander around on the top of the hallways for a while, and that was fun. I couldn't find a way in, and so eventually I just gave up and jumped off the edge and fell for a long time, and then I fell past the map screen, so now I know where that's stored in the game data. And then just continued falling into the void indefinitely, and eventually I reloaded the game. But it's so... I mean, so those are all, like, technical... The game technically is a disaster. Like, it's terrible. But then even the actual game design... There's a part really early in the game where you first encounter this new enemy type, and it's kind of this giant, hulking, armless thing. And it, specifically, the game tells you, like, look, you can't kill this. You're gonna want to sneak around it. And it's like, got it. Okay, so you do that. The next room has another one of those things, and it goes into, like, the combat music, and you get attacked by a bunch of smaller enemies. And the only way to progress past that room is to kill the thing that it literally just told you couldn't kill. And better yet, when you shoot at it, your ammo physically bounces off of it. And there's no indication that you're doing any damage. And you have to, like, unload all of your ammo on it to kill it. And it just... Like, I was stuck there for a long time until eventually I gave up and tried that. I was like, oh, okay, I was supposed to kill the thing the game specifically told me I couldn't kill. Cool, great, moving on. And the whole game is like that. It's not... It's been a while since I've been this angry at a game, because normally I enjoy poorly made bad games, but this was just stupid. Yeah.
Can I interest you in Fight Crab?
You know what? Maybe. No, I mean,
you're in the market for poorly made bad games.
Oh, I love, like, I have a deep affinity for the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise. I love Devil's Third.
No, you don't mention that game on the show. We've had to ban people from the show for this.
Well, there you go. This will be my final...
Including the game star, who's not allowed on the show anymore, apparently.
Oh, God.
But I mean, it's, like, I normally am fine with, some jank, but there was just a bit too much jank in this game.
I mean, it almost sounds like... There are games that just sort of, like, check off all the weird bad checkboxes, and you start to wonder if somebody made a game like this deliberately, could you tell? And
right,
I feel like you could, like,
on purpose.
Like when somebody makes when The Room happens, like you could tell it's authentic. But when the fake The Room happens, a faux room, as it were, like you like, it's just not funny, and it's actually more miserable than the real thing. But at some point, like, in my brain's like, when you're describing this, is this... Did you just roll right past the map, huh? That's just there, stored on the Y coordinates at, like, -200, huh?
Yeah, I think it's just that whoever tests this never decided to, like, turn around and try walking backwards. Like, it really feels like they just kind of, like, hit export on, Unity or whatever engine this is, and...
Here we go, here's the game.
There you go. Yep, print it.
There's some pretty fantastic bugs in Troll and I that only happen if you haven't turned off your Switch in a while.
Oh, I know. Troll and I is a masterpiece. I adore
No, it is not, sir.
Oh, but no, okay, so games that are, like, so bad in the perfect way, Troll and I is absolutely that. There's my favorite glitch in Troll and I is when it will just put a loading screen on the screen at the place where there isn't a loading screen, and the game is still running behind it, and you can hear your character moving. But it's just put up a loading screen so you can't see what you're doing. It's the best. I love it.
But this is not. This is a different kind of buggy.
Oh no! This is just annoying buggy, because there's save points. Like, there's no auto saving. So, like, when this stuff happens, you're like, I gotta go back and like, get through a bunch of janky fight scenes at 10 frames per second, and it's frustrating. It doesn't have the emotional payoff of Troll and I.
I'm trying to think of what's the lowest frame rate I've seen consistently in a game, and 10 is really bad.
This is the worst. It's slightly better docked. Like in my review, I point out that if for some reason you feel just the horrible need to play this game, like, play it docked, because at least then it is technically possible. Like, there were certain fights I'd get to playing it handheld and be like, all right, I have to wait to do this fight till I get home, because I don't think it's possible to beat it handheld. Like, I just can't. I can't aim. And you only get 5 bullets, you know, so it's a survival horror game. So if you miss, you're in bad shape.
Were the bugs, did the bugs happen docked as well?
Yes. Yeah, no, the bugs are universal.
Okay.
Yeah. And even like better frame rate is like 15 to 20. Like, it's still not a good frame rate. It's just less terrible.
I think 15's a lot. 15's a lot of frames.
Yeah, I mean, 15 frames in a second, you're good. You're fine.
I mean, movies are what, like 12? What is it? I mean, it's fine.
24.
It's close enough. We just call it the cinematic experience, and you're fine.
Yeah. The Shadow of the Colossus excuse.
If Hollow had the better frame rate, it would just look like, you know, a telenovela on the TV or something. Like,
there you go.
Look like it's filmed on video.
Oh yeah.
Remember when Peter Jackson was trying to sell everybody high frame rate in movies? Remember how that turned out? You just want too much.
Yeah.
I understand. I get it. Hollow is my fault.
Hollow?
I get it.
The Hollow is the experience we held inside ourselves all along, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah,
it teaches us all something about how hollow we all are inside.
About how quality control doesn't matter.
No. That's what's also, like, you play a game like this, and then you get on Twitter and you realize there are people being rejected for Switch development.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you doing? If this is okay, what are you? Yeah.
I have a question.
Okay.
Not to generalize or anything. Hollow. Where is the publisher / developer of this game from?
I think they're from Europe somewhere. I don't remember. I looked it up when I wrote the review, but I don't remember now.
Forever Entertainment SA. Yep, they sure are. And they've got 1 million games on Switch. Holy shit. Oh no, they're the Frederick Resurrection of Music guys. Oh no. Oh. Download content's great.
Yeah. So yeah, I highly recommend it.
10 out of 10,
really good.
Best game.
10 out of 10. Game of the year, probably.
Don't say that, they can quote you on it.
But, I would love that. If somewhere they do a physical release of this game someday, and on the back of the box, it says 10 out of 10, Game of the Year, John Rairdin, Nintendo World Report. That would be the pinnacle of my career.
Just frame it.
Yeah, I would.
Oh.
Finally
Great.
proof that someone in the industry is listening to this.
Yeah. Like,
they were, but then they turned it off.
Yeah.
They heard me take shots at Frederick 2, Frederick Strikes Back, and were like, no, we can't.
How dare he?
We have to protect this. Any other games you want to talk about?
I mean, I did Mulaka. That was good. I'm doing Layers of Fear. That's better than Hollow. But I haven't formed a solid opinion on it yet.
Strong. Tell me about Mulaka. It's gotten some coverage and seems to get some attention. I just don't know much about it.
It's a 3D action platformer. A lot of Darksiders influence, especially to the combat. But it's all based on the mythology of a North American a northern Mexican tribe. And so the developers of the game have Lienzo, I think they're called. It's like a tribe that's local to where they live in Mexico, and so they've done all this research and put together the entire like story of the game based on like the oral history of this tribe, which is very undocumented elsewhere. So it's this really cool concept of like preserving history through video games, but then also it's like a pretty fun, just 3D action platformer kind of game. It's not horribly long, though it is longer than I expected it to be. When I saw the like videos and trailers for it reminded me of something like Journey. Like I was like, okay, artistically satisfying, frou-frou. It's going to be 45 minutes long. Hooray. But it's like probably 15, 20 hours long. And it's pretty fun.
Cool.
I think I gave it like
and those you want.
I was just going to say, I think I gave it like a 7.5 or an 8. I don't remember. It's been several days, so I've purged it from my memory.
It's been several days. You gave it
had to make room for hollow. Had to hollow out for hollow.
So to break the bad news to you, you gave it neither of those scores. You gave it an 8.5.
All right, well, good. It's even better than I remember it being. Perfect. Play it today.
Oh my God! Is it every John comes on the show and forgets what score they give games?
We're busy people, all right.
Do you want to say it about it being on par with Conduit?
Yeah, well, no, I was going to leave it implicit.
The problem is that gag is like how many years old? I mean,
we renew it constantly, so it's fine.
Yeah, but if you keep renewing it implicitly, people are never going to get it.
It's true. So yes, this is as good as Conduit. There we go. Maybe it kicks you out of its online play too randomly for cheating.
Well, we don't like cheaters.
I don't even know what we were detecting. Anyway, all right, I'm gonna go next. I too have reviewed a video game. This is a weird like trend that's happened now where I've reviewed a bunch of games that get 4s. And Fear Effect Sedna is one of those games. Fear Effect Sedna is the weird Square Enix approved, kickstarted, independently developed revival of a 17 years dead franchise from Eidos that largely was sold on these weird, overly sexualized ad campaigns for what actually were survival horror games. So, like, completely poorly advertised, not what the game actually is. And this is a weird, disjointed, isometric action puzzle game with puzzles that can't be solved by human beings. Combat that's just really not good. And dialogue that has, on multiple occasions, put me in absolute stitches at its delivery, its complete lack of being intelligible, its complete nonsense plot. It's fantastic. So basically, Fear Effect Sedna, they bring back all the characters from Fear Effect, but because it's a sequel, even though the last game was almost 2 decades ago, we're not going to introduce them. Basically, they just run around trying to find stolen art, only to find out they're actually chasing down a guy in Greenland who's trying to create real-world versions of mythical Icelandic creatures. So yeah, actually, it too gracefully and with all appropriate respect represents native. No, it doesn't. It actually talks about turning people into deer-human hybrids. Oh, I just spoiled this bad game for you. I'm sorry. And essentially, you go around labs and try to stealth people in an isometric game, but the game doesn't really let you stealth very well, and sight cones aren't very good, and there's fog of war, even down halls, and also it's just bad. Your AI, you have control of multiple characters, and a lot of times they just stand around in the open while you're controlling another character, not trying in any way, shape, or form to avoid being seen, setting off alarms, and just breaking the entire experience for you. But if you want to find the good parts of Fear Effect Sedna, it's being reached out to by reviewers and yourself reaching out to your own staff to go, I can't figure out how to solve this puzzle, please help. And ultimately solving it because you stood right next to your TV and saw this poorly highlighted, non-interactable hint where everything else has been interactable so far. It's a good game. And it's dialogue opportunities like 2 characters wandering around in the snow, one of them having the ability to turn into a deer monster because I don't know reasons, and them not talking at all, not saying anything for significant period of time, and then the other one of them snapping off the other one like they've been talking the whole time saying, don't you try to pretend like you know everything. It's like, the fuck are you talking? What? Who are you talking to? And then they have this argument about an argument they weren't having, which makes me think either the dialogue didn't fire that was supposed to lead up to this, or they just didn't bother. And like scenes are just not in the plot. It's fantastic. This game is just spectacularly just bad at everything. It functions though, and there's not bugs and hitches. But besides that, yeah, don't play this game. Just don't. I wrote a review. It's not good. I couldn't tell you that a week ago, but I can now. This is a bad game. Don't play it. But the biggest thing I've been dealing with is Yakuza 6 is coming out, and people who have Yakuza 6 aren't allowed to tell you if it's good or not, but it's a Yakuza game, and it's been out in Japan, and the review's really good in Japan. So, yeah. So I've been trying to get through Yakuza 5, which I started a long, long time ago and then just didn't. So I've actually been playing it using my 7-day trial of PSNow, which, if you're not familiar with that, is a service that Sony offers on the PC and the PlayStation 4 to stream games that they're hosting on machines that they have at their data centers. And that includes PS3 games, and I think it also includes PS4 games. So basically, I want to say it does. At least they've talked about that it could. So I'm playing Yakuza 5, streaming off of a serverized PS3, sitting in a data center somewhere. And overall, I'm not going to talk too much about Yakuza 5 because it's a Yakuza game. It is what it is, It's one of those. But it's worked pretty well. I have fiber internet, so it's fast. But I've been able to play the game without any kind of issues, which is impressive because this game does have like a reasonably convoluted, combo system for its combos. So like timing and stuff really matters. It's got a bunch of button press events for like dodges and blocks and special moves. It's got a lot of video, which is the kind of thing that can sometimes cause streaming to just be kind of crappy. And occasionally when it like jumps to one FMV to the other and there's big like scene changes, you can see some pixelization, but overall it's been fine. The only thing I've noticed in terms of it and frequently I forget that I'm not playing it locally. I have it on the PS3. I just don't want to use the PS3, and so I figured this is a good way to test the 7-day PSNow subscription I have. So like frequently I forget I'm not playing on a PS4, that I'm actually streaming this game. The only downside I've experienced is that sometimes, like when I'm doing combat, I can tell there's a little bit of like a swimmy delay. Like I'm hitting a button and the effect is happening just slightly later. Sometimes if I'm running, like I've been running through town and I don't stop quite when I expect to, and I end up running into a person, which for whatever reason in Yakuza 5 they decided should slow you down, whereas in Yakuza 4 you just barreled through people and could occasionally knock them down, which was actually a lot of fun. Like they would just go flying off like they had no mass whatsoever. It was great. It's this game, they slowed you down. It's like, don't run into people, it's not nice. It's like, yeah, but I just beat a dude's face in and then poured hot water on a teapot all over his face. Like, nice, who cares? But the only real issue I have is when I go to the Club Sega, which already is an issue, and try to play Taiko Drum Master. That is impossible. Like because it's a rhythm game, and it demands some pretty intense precision. And with the delay, I just can't do it. I can't figure out the timing to do it. So that's been it. But like in the grand scheme of things, this is pretty impressive. And the price Sony wants for PSNow is really high. It's like $15 a month. But for this 7 days thing, if I can rush through Yakuza 5 before my 7 days is up, you know what? I'm okay with that. And if there were a bunch, I think there's like 700 games on it right now. Like, yeah, it might be worth it. There is this weird thing where if you idle for a while, you'll get a warning, and then the game will just turn off. Which I got a phone call and walked away, and so I lost a bunch of progress. But like beyond that, it's pretty effective, and it kind of makes me wonder, like, hey, is this a way you could do like real full backwards compatibility with any weird piece of hardware at some point? Like, could this be how we solve the mystery of how you emulate Dreamcast games? Serverized Dreamcasts, serverized Sega Saturns with its like 7 processors.
Still be up shit creek when it comes to Samba de Amigo, though.
It's true. You gotta have your maracas, and they'd be all out of sync in timing. But in general, like, it's been pretty good. And you figure, okay, I'm in a fight. I'm getting the video showing the action, which is coming down to me. I'm reacting to it, which is going back up. it's then processing that and then pushing the video result back down to me, and I'm not noticing the majority of the time. It's not even rendering on my machine. I'm just getting a video stream back. So it, all in all, it's impressive. I don't know that I would pay $15 a month for it. I might give them 1 month just to play with it some more, but beyond that, I like it. And I'm glad I'll be able to get through Yakuza 5 and I haven't turned on the PS3, because that's not something I want to do. I'm only gonna do it if I absolutely have to. So yeah, it's worth a shot for doing your 5-day or your 7-day trial if you've got one. If you have PS Plus, you got a trial for free. It is gonna auto renew though, so if you do the trial, just like I have a reminder on my phone to cancel the auto renewal on Saturday when it's gonna kick in on Sunday. Just like that's how they get you. So if you've got a credit card tied to your PlayStation account, just be sure to pull it off. Guillaume.
Yeah, so I've been playing a lot of short, kind of narrative-focused games lately, and one of those short narrative-focused games I played, just like before recording, was Old Man's Journey, and I had heard a lot of good things about it from John Rairdin, a listener who is also
yes,
a critic and a. Anyway, so I was pretty excited to play it on Switch, but unfortunately I don't think I had the optimal experience. This is a game by Broken Rules, who made And Yet It Moves, and I just loved the WiiWare version of that game, so I'm always glad to support them. And Old Man's Journey originally came out on the iPad, and it really shows that it was designed for a touchscreen. And that's not how I played it. You can play it on the Switch screen. But I was playing it with Karen, so, we took a controller and we played it on the TV, and when you do that, well, you control a cursor with a pointer with the analog stick, and it kind of robs you of the tactile feeling of interacting with the game's world. The game is just... you're controlling this indirectly. You're tapping where you want this old man to go. This old man who got a letter, he seems to be living on a coastal town in France somewhere, and he receives a letter and then, goes inside and comes back out with a backpack and goes on a trek. And so your goal is to get him wherever it is that he's going to, and little by little you reveal his memories. Whenever you find a bench, he's old, he needs to sit down, rest his tired legs, so then strokes his beard and reminisces, and you get a little bit more of exactly what's going on, and you get kind of a scene from his past that explains what the letter might be about. But mostly the game is about touching things, interacting with, the elements on the screen to make them do things. Like you might have a windmill and you touch the blades, so you touch the blades and, you might make them move. You might see, an old lady just knitting at her window, and you touch, that area of the screen, and so you might close the Windows shutters on her, and then, she pushes them back back away, and just kind of like shakes her fist at you. So it's all very cute. The art is just fantastic. If you go on the eShop, you can look at the trailer for the game, and the art is beautiful. And a lot of the appeal of the game is, just seeing this really gorgeous art and, interacting with it. But the interactions are pretty slight. Like, it's mostly just like, okay, I just made something happen. It's it's a little bit toy-like. And there's no dialogue, there's not much writing, outside of, signs that might be out there, and they're going to be in French, so, you might not understand them anyway. But, and when you control this type of game with indirectly just moving cursor around, you just lose that feeling of actually interacting with the thing. And for instance, like when you move the cursor over a waterfall, your finger is meant to kind of interrupt the flow of the water, like you create a space under your finger where the water would normally fall. You just create kind of a hole in a waterfall. So that's a neat effect on an iPad or when you're using a touchscreen. But when you're just using a cursor, you lose a lot of the effect. And yeah, like it was just not that great of a game to be playing, I think, on a TV, like with someone else. And I don't know, like it was, Karen commented, like it's very slow. I was kind of falling asleep.
I did think that it sounded like if anyone ever did a video game adaptation of The Straight Story by David Lynch, it would be a lot like this game, except possibly with desert bus style sequences on a John Deere lawnmower.
Well, I sure wish I understood that reference, but
it's a good
one
film.
day.
But it is about an old man going across country on a lawnmower to see his dying brother very slowly. So it's like the least weird thing David Lynch has ever done.
Well, one day I'll catch up with his entire filmography. I'm still
don't do that. That's not a smart decision.
Yeah, well, just reading description of Naked Lunch usually puts me off.
That's Cronenberg.
Okay. That's the wrong person. Yeah.
Also strange. There's a lot of sphincter talking in that film, more than I care for.
There's a lot of sphincter talking in this podcast. What's your point?
Oh, James, really, you went there.
Yeah, and just, in the end also, like, the puzzles are mostly a little bit simplistic. Like, mostly what you're doing is that you're playing with perspective a little bit. This countryside that the old man is traversing is very hilly, and you're kind of just moving the hills up and down to kind of create a path where, like, the hill that he's standing on and the hill that you want him to move to are going to connect. So you can just kind of hop to the foreground and the background and keep on, walking towards this destination. And that's basically the entire game. There might be a few puzzles where, like, oh no, like the sheep are standing in your way and you got to find a way to move them out of there and, like, make your way past them. And little things like that, but it's a very simple game, and I think if you're going to play it on the Switch screen, and that's my recommendation, I guess. The other game that I've played, and I liked it a whole lot more, and it's a game I played for review, and it's A Whole New World. We talked about dubious puns earlier, and I'm not sure. Basically whole
HOLE.
HOLE, and the entire
so it's
reason
kind of
why.
like the converse of fractured butthole,
Yes.
which is coming to Switch through the direct.
Exactly.
I can't believe someone named a game something just because they wanted people to say butthole with a different cadence. It just seems frivolous. That's all I'm saying.
Well, here, A Whole New World, there's not even that kind of joy that comes with it. It's
just spelling, yeah.
There's 100%
it's not
less
dirty.
butt references,
It's just,
is what you're saying.
No, it's just a reference to the fact that, first, this is a 2D retro-style platformer, an action 2D game, very much inspired by, in terms of looks anyway, by games like Castlevania and maybe Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which was not a good game, but
Great reference material.
Ooh,
yeah,
boy.
well, that's what it reminded me of, just because of the color palette that it uses, colors like purples that you would never see in a Mario game, but that were just like oozing all over the place in kind of the spooky, quote-unquote, NES games that...
Everyone knows purple spooky is all shit.
Yeah, well,
It's
that's...
the spookiest of colors.
Well, that's actually my byline for my review. I don't know.
Oh, for your review. I was hoping that was your byline. Guillaume,
no.
purple is the spookiest of
Business
colors.
card. He pulls his
Well, it is.
business card out like Patrick Bateman, but instead of bone or whatever colour it is, it's actually bright purple. And his job is Grimace impersonator.
all that to say, all that to say that, you know, like you can very much tell that just by looking at it what games inspired its looks, and it's very convincing. But at the same time, thankfully, that's pretty much the only thing that it borrows from those titles. You know, it doesn't, you know, borrow the terrible gameplay, if you know, or kind of progression system of a game like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It's much more straightforward. It's you know, I was gonna say you go from left to right, and you do, but like you've got these vast stages to explore. There's like 5 of them, and there are multiple stories high for them. You know, in a lot of cases, they're very long. You're supposed to explore every nook and cranny to find secrets. There are fake walls that you can go through and find more secret lives and really weird stuff that the developer just decided to put there because they thought it was funny or because it was cute. There's actually, when you finish a game, kind of the game keeps track of what weird one-off sprites that you found, and then shows you kind of the silhouette of the stuff that you didn't find, to kind of goad you into like, oh yeah, actually, like you found a lot of secrets, but you missed a whole lot too, and maybe you want to go back and find these things that you missed. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, and the reason why it's called A Whole New World is because when you fall into a pit, that's not the end of the game. You don't lose a life. Instead, there is a mirror upside down world down there, and you're kind of playing in a mirror version of the level. Way more purple, you know, i.e. nightmarish and hellish.
The dark side.
Yeah, and you know, it's mirrored. I mean, like when you jump, like you're standing, you're walking on the ceiling, you're upside down, and when you jump, you do the arc and you go down and then you go back up, and so that's kind of the whole, you know, conceit of the game.
Yeah, when I was looking at this game when it was on the review list, I actually thought of Greg right away, because I was like, this looks like a Konami NES game. Like, and I'm not sure what game brought me there, but like that was kind of where I was at, or maybe not NES, like kind of like almost a Super Nintendo.
To me, like it just conjured up, you know, Castlevania 2 specifically, and I'm not sure why, but it actually, like, it's one of the reasons why I took on the review, because I kind of felt like revisiting that game, because I had this strange nostalgia for it, but it just, you know, it was baffling, and that's probably one of the reasons why it kind of made an impression for me as a kid. But you know, like, so I thought, like, okay, like maybe instead I'm gonna take on this review and it's gonna kind of evoke these feelings, but at the same time it's gonna be more playable and less battling.
You won't actually be playing Simon's Quest.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I can pretend that I am, but I'm not.
730 days since last played Simon's Quest.
So and
that,
you know, like
there's that like the nuclear accident thing in Homer's office.
Yes.
But I gotta say, like the game is actually really well made, and you know, despite you know, having all the trappings of an old spooky NES game that's nearly unplayable, it's very playable. It's very well made. And it's not nearly as punishing and difficult as those games used to be. In fact, like, it's weird because you do earn 1-ups, and there are continues and all of that stuff. But the live system is more works more like modern games, where if you die, if you lose all your heart containers, there's you basically get revived on the spot, and so you don't lose any progress. And not only do enemies not respawn when you go back once, you know, when you retrace your steps or anything, but they're gone like as long as you don't continue. You can actually clear entire levels of enemies, and then you're, you know, as you can backtrack, and you're not going to see anything. You can
peruse the level at your leisure.
Yeah, basically, unless, you know, you made it past a point where you can't jump back to, you know, the ledge that you were on before. So it's really cool. I really enjoyed it. Maybe the difficulty is a little bit unbalanced though, because this system really made it so that I kept finding, hidden rooms past the walls, and so I kept finding one-ups, which allowed me to go through most levels without ever continuing. And so they were, not a cakewalk, but it definitely made the game much easier than you would expect. And I never used the continue until the last stage, where I used 2, and then I went against the last boss and I used 33. So
that's
against
what they call
bosses,
a difficulty spike.
yeah, and against bosses, that's the only time that you don't get revived on the spot. You can't just keep. It's not a war of attrition. Like, you have to actually have reflexes and dodge and stuff like that. And one of my problems was that I seemed to completely lose my means. Like, I whenever there was like just a little bit too much happening on the screen, I kept forgetting, okay, which button is jump again, and which one is shoot? And it's only at that point that I realized, oh wait, these controls are the reverse of every game that this game references. Like,
damn it.
Yep, it's got inverted controls, just like the Mega Man collection on GameCube.
It's the Mega Man X specifically.
No, Mega Man collection. The first one was the one with the reversed controls.
God, maybe they both did it.
I'm pretty sure. Well, the GameCube controller did not have the diamond.
Yeah, I mean, so it would have been tough, but yeah.
Yeah. So so that's definitely a knock against the game, because it's overtly like references Mega Man and Ghouls and Ghosts and Castlevania, and all those games have the attack button on B and the jump on A, and this game goes and does the opposite, and it's baffling. So I'm hoping that the game should be patched. There are some things that you unlock when you finish the game that do not actually unlock. Like, it kind of messes up if you try to play the challenge mode after beating the game once. It doesn't actually do anything, and you have to kind of restart the Switch. So hopefully it will get patched, and when it does, hopefully they will let you map the controls to what you want, because it's not good. It definitely made the game tougher than it should have been, or that last encounter tougher than it should have been.
Yeah, it also sounds like the game didn't do a great job of preparing you for it. If it, it just didn't tax you that much, and then all of a sudden something that is fairly challenging.
Yeah, like, I mean, the bosses, some of them had been pretty challenging and whittled down my extra lives a bunch, but I had enough of a stock of them to not actually get a continue against them. But yeah, the final boss was just, it really demands precision that nowhere else in the game, that's not demanded of you anywhere else in the game. But I really enjoyed the game, and I wish I could have given it a better score. I gave it 7.5, but up until the end, like, I probably would have given it like 8.5. It's a strong game. It's well designed for the most part, and it's just these few irksome things that brought it down, but they're pretty major problems. So
at the same time, it's just, there's a lot of the times with Switch, and I guess just games in general these days, the perils of playing it early is that you will end up sort of experiencing eminently kind of correctable things that will get corrected later, probably.
Right. You're almost certainly going to play this game in its worst state publicly.
Yeah. One final thing is that, like, it's very much kind of in the same spirit as Shovel Knight, where they looked at the capabilities of the NES and tried to emulate that as much as they could. It shows in the color palette that they chose and other little touches. But unlike Shovel Knight, they didn't really... They were pretty liberal in what they decided to imitate or emulate, and what they kind of decided to ignore. So you've got these huge bosses that you couldn't possibly see on the NES. The number of sprites at the same time on the screen is just that would have made your screen flicker like hell. But like sometimes, like, it will blatantly put stuff that that's just kind of a reference to old games, and that, I don't know, it's cute as hell. Like, if you kill certain, like, these wolves that jump at you in the second level, if you kill them and they're jumping at you, they're in midair, but you see their animation, like, they collapse, but they're still in the air. Like, they collapse and then they disappear.
Like they're falling onto a floor that's not there.
Yes.
Right, yeah. And I just...
that.
I don't know. Like, I just, like, the game kind of won me over, like, right there. Like, I was like, this is my kind of game. This is exactly what I was looking for, So, yeah, I really enjoyed it. I wish my score could reflect that better.
I mean, that's fair. I think what came through looking at the review was more that you really had fun with this game, and then it's just got problems, which is, there's
breaks
a lot
my
of
heart.
There's as we say in the review biz, there's a lot of sevens. There's there's a lot of ways you can get to a 7.
It depends what outlet we're talking about.
That's true.
You pretty much have to go and sleep with someone's wife at Famitsu to get a 7. They have to be that angry with you to give a 7.
I'm very upset. I'm giving you a 7, a 75.
Meanwhile, for Edge, it's like, to get under an 8, you have to be made outside of the UK.
All right. I think it's time for us to end the show. Yeah. But we have some business to attend to. First off, emails. You can send them. We might read them. It's rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. You can send those to us. It's email. That's how your parents used to communicate. Now you have all like...
Oh, God.
What am I doing?
With each other, or...
No, just like that's, like that was how they used to send messages. Now they use whatever. They use, your Snapchats or whatever's.
Whatever the kids are doing these days.
Yeah, whatever these kids are doing these days. But yeah, you can send us your emails to rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. We will read them, and we may include them in the show. We stealth included a couple today. Just get them in there. If you have questions about the Direct or about really anything you want, you can come drop those on us. So, We Wear Retroactive. We are rapidly running out of time to do any more of these. And so, I have opened the floor to my co-hosts to identify what games we want to do in sort of the last hurrah of the We Are Retroactive. And... enthusiasm seems lighter than it was for friggin' Bonsai Barber, so, which is a dark statement I'm making, but it is what it is. So on that, I am going to just go ahead and executive decision here. I am going to play Jet Rocket, as it was recommended by multiple people in emails. You all are free to join me.
Luke and David both wrote in with suggested Jet Rocket. Luke having played the demo for it, because if you remember with WiiWare, they did some weird stuff where like they didn't do demos for a long time, but when they did, they had like a little rotation for a while or something.
Oh, that's right.
They were only available for a little while, and then like certain ones phased in and out. But then when the Wii was basically done, I think they just made all the demos available. And left them that way. So, you can play the Jet Rocket demo as well for the time being.
Maybe we should do retroactives on the demo.
On the demo. Yeah, all the demos.
I'm going to play that. You gentlemen are welcome to join me. I'm also going to play My Life as a King some more. And so you can do that. I think we're just going to commit to play some WiiWare games and just kind of cover them in a new business segment. So if you have any recommendations for us, get them in quick, because we're probably just going to pick some to play.
We do have Dingens as well, mentioned Lost Winds 1 and 2, which have since showed up on iOS and Windows in the year. So it's quite recent on Windows, actually. Yeah,
it was rescued into Steam about a year ago, I think.
Yeah, but probably most associated with WiiWare.
Yeah.
And pretty good reputation. I assume got a sterling score in Edge, because isn't it British developed or something?
It's 12 out of 10. John, where can people find you?
Oh boy. Most of my NWR stuff is on NWR TV, our YouTube channel. About 100 of you are probably listening to this podcast on that channel.
It's
so
true.
subscribe to it.
This is the man responsible for putting us in one more place.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, it's great.
Well, no, I'm apologizing to the rest of the human race.
It's one of the few places we get comments, and a lot of them are like, they're YouTube comments. I've always wanted to know what getting YouTube comments was like.
Did you really?
You're still in the phase of getting nice YouTube comments.
Yeah, isn't like
eventually,
isn't like
they eventually shift to people telling you that, like, hey, you have no personality, or you're racist, or you're gonna go bald, or like just like that's what it will inevitably become.
No one has
Just
ever
letting you
accused
know.
me of not having personality.
I was under the impression
it hadn't happened to me until recently.
I was
So,
under the impression that below the line was the new over the line. Like, just don't go there. Just nowhere near. Steer well clear.
Any rational human being wouldn't do that, but obviously not applicable here. But to be fair, I think last time I was in there, I saw it was Klex Yoshi, and he's still on my shit list, so that's fine.
I like the idea you've got a pretty regularly updated shit list.
Wait, you don't?
It's the same two bastards on it fucking since like 2001. So
So mine's a dry erase board, but John's just painted on there. Lindemann specifically. Everybody else I can erase, put on there, but he's got to stick around. All right, well, Greg.
Yes. So we did some WiiWare shout-outs now because the hour is late indeed on that score. But music-wise, with the return of Wario in the form of the WarioWare Gold on
Pog
3DS,
form?
we did have a Wario-related request. It's not a perfect sort of synergy, but it's good enough. So I like the music from this game. We had a request from Ben to use Toy Block Tower from Wario Land 4 for the GBA, which certainly the original WarioWare had quite a lot of the sound design kind of in common, some of those weird sound effects and stuff, but yeah, that was the first Wario Land game I played. I enjoyed it. I don't know whether it'd be my favourite now. I actually replayed it in ages, but I really liked it at the time, and the quirky kind of soundtrack was definitely a big part of that.
Cool. Well, John, thank you for joining us this week.
Of course.
And everyone else. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.